like an empty shell, like my own mind is a prison cell. Feel myself sinking lower. Somebody poke me, I might fall over. Gotta keep cool, gotta maintain faith. Even when you feel foolish, like you lost the race. Cause it's not when it's too tough to take. It's long after you feel like you'll break. It's alright, alright. Hush, little darling, it's alright. Hide your eyes, so it's time to fight. Hush, little darling. I'll be the last man standing. Whoa, last man standing. Last man standing. I'll always be the last man standing. Wish I could shed my shame like an old snake skin, so empty.
Hello, everybody. It is Corey Poirier, and coming at you here live, sort of, somewhat live. I'm in Yarmouth, in Nova Scotia, in Canada, and I have Christine Campbell here with us in Halifax, I believe, in Nova Scotia. So pretty cool what we can do with technology now. So Christine Campbell, been forever. I think probably the best starting point, I always like to do this, as you know, is for people that are watching that don't know who you are, they're hearing about you for the first time. If they're in Atlantic, Canada, that's probably not the case, but you never know. Can you tell us a little bit about your backstory or a little bit about who you are and all that kind of good stuff?
Oh, wow. Well, that's quite an opening question.
You do Reader's Digest version.
Well, I'm a musician, and I think of myself as a businesswoman, figuring out the ropes, but really building one brick at a time until someday I have an entire empire. But I just started at school, and I did my degree, but then I decided I wanted to do music full time. I had a classical piano background. I'm a rock guitarist, shred, and I'm probably most known for a soulful vocal, I guess. And I try to put it all together and make music my life and really innovative ways to connect with people. I've done it by raising $5,000 my album Roller Coaster, which I released, and just for getting to open for musicians like Jan Arden, Chantal Kraviazik, Bob Seger. And I'm just always, right now I'm trying to get ready for a video and collaborating with different artists. Produced a few of my tracks, and just always trying to do something new and cool and not follow the old school ways necessarily, especially because the scene is so innovative. It's always changing. Technology is exponentially growing, and I'm just trying to grow with it.
So, wow, so many directions I'd like to go there, but we, for 1 second, and this is I guess the challenge of technology, we only had one little time where we sort of lost you, is whenever you said the amount that you raised for your crowdfunder, and I think if I remember correctly, is it 25,000?
Yes.
For your, I guess, for the recording of and production of your album, is that correct?
Yeah, and it was still a little bit more than that, but it was an amazing experience, and it was very interactive. And to be honest, this day and age, it seems to be an interactive business. Like, you kind of rely on fans, and they're kind of along for the ride with you and helping you and just seeing it grow, and you're growing together.
So it's funny because in a bit I want to talk about the new book that I put out, because we have a contribution by you in it. And I'll go there later, but I launched it through a crowdfunding campaign. I used a different platform, Kickstarter, and much the same. I heard a lot of people say that I didn't know you could launch a book that way. And really, as long as the crowdfunding will let you launch your product, then there's no reason you can't. So I had, I guess, an experience like you did as well, and it really made a big difference in the launching of the book. So coming back full circle, when it comes to that and going with a crowdfunding campaign, it's really grassroots because you're really seeing, the support of the local community. Is that, do you think, the way that the music industry is going to be completely headed in the future? Because, I say all the time when I talk about you that 10 years ago, and maybe 15, you'd be signed to like a major label probably right now. And just because of the options were more limited then, and probably be like, Sash Jordan signed to a major label. And now today, we don't see that anymore. And so do you think that's kind of where we're headed?
I think so. I often look at like the projection of things and see where I think it's going to go based on how it's steadily grown since then. I'm not an expert, but it does seem like there's a lot of more, I should say, I guess, independent labels emerging and more innovative, where people are wearing several different hats. So sometimes it's even kind of hard to say when you do work with people what they do for you. Like, publicity isn't just publicity anymore. And it's also constantly changing. A lot of times they do multiple jobs. So sometimes it's hard to say, hey, this is my PR person. It's just my, you know, like my Sarah. Here's my Sarah, because I just don't always know what that hat is that they wear. But it's cool because it's like I'm watching it evolve. I don't know what it's evolving to, but it does seem like a lot more people are doing independent things. The return on CD sales doesn't even compare to the old days. Barely anything goes platinum, and there's a lot of risk in getting label funding sometimes, even though it's hard without it. But even with it, a lot of times they're paying for your trip and eventually you have to pay it all back. So this way, it's a lot of work, but it is like a small business. You just have to keep going through the red tape. But yeah, I'm the one in the ship. I'm aware exactly what's happening with logistics and overhead costs and things like that. So it's nice that way. There's a lot of cons, but I feel like it's a really good place to be a musician for me. And I feel like it's a middle class. There wasn't so much a middle class musician before, at least that I know of. It seemed like it was more the starving artist versus a huge, you know, success with hit record after hit record. And now it seems like there's different ways to get support from people that really believe in you, and just to survive by doing what you love at like a moderate pace and rate. And I think that's a good way to be sometimes, because you really appreciate it as you're going through the journey.
Well, and it's funny because when I said, you know, probably would be signed to a major label, I don't necessarily think that's, you know, I don't know that that's a good thing. It's just that back then it was a totally different beast altogether. I mean, I remember interviewing Lenny Gallant a number of years ago, and him talking about back in the days when he used to walk his CDs around to put on consignment at local music stores. And then he talked about how then he was with a label and they did all that stuff. And then all of a sudden now he's back to posting on Facebook and inviting people to events and connecting one-on-one with people. So in his opinion, he said it came completely full circle, and he actually likes it more the way it is today for himself, or at least then he said that, than he actually did back in the label day.
Well, and I think I kind of came on the scene after the transition had taken place. Like I wasn't really around whenever people were able to book like 6 nights a week, and it was much easier to book people like huge tours, and without even them having any hit songs or anything like that. And now it's a lot more of a struggle. But whenever I did come onto the scene, I hadn't gone through that transition, so I feel very lucky to be a full-time musician. First off, when it's really tricky to get all those gigs, and I've had to kind of change with the times and like tailor to different audiences. But had I had a label do that for me, I think it would have been really difficult to have to go back to doing it. But I'm glad, you know, that I do all that stuff, because at the end of the day, even though I'm really tired sometimes, and it is sometimes the business side can be never ending, and that's the times that I wish I had a little bit more help, which I think I will down the road. But just that feeling at the end, knowing that you started at a certain point and then where you've come, or how far you've come after a few months, and then a few months more, and then it's always like further ahead, and it's cool just to see it grow. So you don't get that mass production, or mass distribution, I should say, as much, but it's cool too, because you have like your super fans. They show up at all your shows, they're rooting for you, and they kind of help you start to spread the word. So.
Well, and it's interesting too. I remember interviewing another musician who I know you're a big fan of, Matt Anderson, and I'm going by memory on what he said during the interview, maybe stuff he said off air. So I won't go into full detail, but I remember him saying this part on for sure during the interview, how a lot of family members were like, "Oh, one day, Matt, you'll get a hit song, a #1 song on the radio." And what was interesting to him, and this is the part I won't go into the detail on, but he's had a really successful career. You know, he revealed some of that stuff during the interview, even from a financial perspective, being able to do it full time and what he's been able to do. And he said, but it's so funny how for some people it still goes back to, are you on the radio with a hit song? And I just think that even that is changed to the extent that I think people are starting to get it now, that it's more about raving fans, like you said, the people that show up at every show, or maybe it's the YouTube video. Like he has YouTube videos with each over 1 million views. And so like he said, at first that bothered him that people were sharing his videos, but then all of a sudden he's seen how much more in the way of bookings and awareness he was getting. And I think it's just that's as much success now as that hit song used to be on the radio.
Well, it totally is, but hit songs are still important. They're not, radio is still very important right now. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I wouldn't love to get a hit. But at the same time, there's different ways to kind of spread out your creativity, and that's like ideas and YouTube, and like I do a weekly thing, Solo Sundays, and eventually I envision that going from Solo Sundays to something much greater and more professional. And I'm building a bit of a studio to work in. I'm visioning a much bigger studio than this demo station I basically built for myself. But even with Matt, like, I think it's really cool that even though sometimes labels are still great to have, but it's also great just to know that you're in charge of what you do. And I've been out to Nashville many times. It was awesome, and to LA and to Vancouver, and I've written with people. And I still strive for that hit, but a lot of people too, they strive for it, and then it's like, if it doesn't work, then they tried, and okay, great. But I plan on playing music till the day I die, and always doing something. And if anything's taught me anything about just being able to stay in the business, it's just kind of having faith. So for me, I have to kind of mind the fort, because it's always going to be something that I do. So I want to grow my business step by step, and then I'm going to take a few chances and try to have synergisms with people I get to meet, and take risks, financial risks I have in the past many times, to try to get those connections and to kind of roll the dice and get to a higher platform a little bit sooner. But in the meantime, I still want to be careful and keep growing the seeds that I've planted initially, because I'm always going to be doing music till the day I die. I always want this as my business. I don't feel like it's even a choice. I feel like it's who I am, and it's what I'm meant to do. And not doing that, not filling my days with this, just I don't want to. That's just not a life that I want to be a part of. This is where it's at for me. And sometimes I even get a little bit distracted, because I feel like, you could use a break. Like, I certainly would love to get funding a little bit easier, or not to have to chase after things as much. But I really am a lucky person, and I kind of have to give myself that pep talk a little bit every day, through at least a part of the day. But it's true, and I feel that realness for the most part.
So, when you mention this, it's interesting, because I think a lot of people think that the music business, so they would think, okay, they see Christine, they see, pictures of a show you're playing at, they see the CD come out, they see you on the really supportive East Coast Countdown and jumping up the charts because of the work that people are doing. Just like, we can talk about the Bob Seger, how that happened, but a lot of that, as you mentioned before, is to do with fan support. And so I think people see that sometimes, and I seen it when I was performing stand-up comedy, not as much with music, but people think it's such a rock star sexy lifestyle, and you just show up and you maybe you drank 20 minutes before, and you just show up and they hand you the guitar, like at the level of, I remember hearing Motley Crue one time. I was watching one of their tour videos, and it said that Nikki Sixx had a bass guitar tech, and then an assistant bass guitar tech. So his guitar tech had an assistant. And so I think people think that that's probably the lifestyle it is for the independent musician. But I also think, without me even asking you too much about it, you've already kind of shown us, just with what you've already said, that it's not like you just walk in and you have 75 green Smarties wait for you.
No, I work my balls off. But I will say this, I'm really glad. I would rather overwork than underwork, because it's when I don't work enough. Like, if I were able to just spend all day drinking and getting into trouble, that's like a very unhappy me. So I do want to minimize the business side, which I'm doing now. I'm adding some people to my team, so hopefully that's going to help out. It's already starting to, and just give me more time for the creativity, because I have a lot of creative ideas that will take up much more time than a full-time job. It's the only thing I'm really trying to get towards. But the work, I thrive on being busy. It's either good or evil that I use my drive for. So if I have things coming at me, and if I see a project and I know I'm working towards that project, like, that's what kind of motivates me to get out of bed in the morning.
So is it tough to be, because it's a Christine Campbell brand, basically. I mean, you're the singer, you're either songwriter or co-songwriter of all the music. You're managing the business side with other people's support, but still doing a lot of that. Are there ever days where you say, I wish I was just the guitarist in the band, or the songwriter, or the singer, songwriter, guitarist in the band, rather than the brand? Or do you also thrive on that side?
Well, I won't lie that I've always dreamt about being in a band. And it's just that bands are so hard. They really are a tough thing to do. And it's still what I'm trying to get to again. But I feel like I'm glad that I had Molotov Cocktail and So Merry and those hard rock days. But at the same time, when I kind of stripped down to my solo situation, it was like I started to appreciate the little tiny idiosyncrasies and sounds, and just little things about doing a solo show. And it was actually the most petrifying thing ever, but I kind of learned more about my voice. I learned how to sing in all these different types of scenarios, and to record better, to do things on my own and become independent. And then slowly adding, like, a lot of times now I still do full band shows, but the bread and butter is usually like the duo or the trio show, and I'm still trying to build. I still want to get back to that full band sound. Mind you, if I was just on tour doing the exact same thing over and over for the rest of my life with one band scenario, I couldn't do that either. I need something interesting to be going on. So I'm really fortunate to have all that. To answer your question though, I do like doing other projects. I like doing other things. I don't always like being like completely steering the ship. I like having people in my circle that I trust. So whenever I'm a little bit exhausted emotionally, and you know, I named my album Roller Coaster because I am a little bit like this sometimes. But so in those times where, you know, you've been pushing it really hard, sometimes you feel like you're training for the Olympics, the way that I work at things and how tired you can get sometimes. But if you are surrounded by people that you trust, positive energy, and people whose opinions you respect, it's so nice when you start having that, because they kind of fill in the blanks when you're unsure about things, and they add their input. And that's kind of what's happening. Like Blake Johnston, Sarah Jamer, Danny Banfield, like these are people that are like either like in my band or my team, and Pete Davison. There's like different bandmates I've gotten to work with, different musicians I've gotten to collaborate with, and I feel like there's this attraction of energy, which is super cool. So I'm getting to, this is like the longest answer ever, I apologize. But my point was is that yes, to a degree, I do sometimes wish that I could just sit back and let somebody else steer the ship. Ultimately, no, because I always want to have like a say in this, the creativity. I don't ever want to just be part of somebody else's band. I want to do my thing. But I want people to grow with me, and I can like lean on them and they can lean on me, and we can kind of take turns and work together. I don't want the full autonomy and the full control. I like collaborating, but still being one of the main captains at least.
So I want to ask you about, and you might have to remind me the name of it, or to ask you about this show, but I know you were on a show in New Brunswick where they drive around in a car and you play music, and I ended up interviewing the guy who hosts the show, so I should remember his name. But I want to just ask you about that experience in a second, because that's the weirdest situation I ever seen with the show. It's super cool. But before I go there, I don't want to jump off of this for a second with the whole idea of some of those milestones that you've had recently, like you know, having a song go up the charts for the new album, with the fan support, opening for some of the people that you mentioned. And I know that you're basically one of the most humble people that I've ever met. And what I'm curious about, though, is it, do you ever have those moments where you say, I made it? Or are they, and I say made it just mean like, wow, I finally did this, and you relish in it? Or do you actually kind of go, oh, that was awesome, next? And I ask this because I know where I sit on this, and it's unique sometimes to see how people sit, and you don't, sometimes people that have an achievement like that just go, wow, that's all, like you said, they go, I've made it, or I haven't, and I'm done. But I'm wondering where that sits with you. Like when you open for Bob Seger, that's massive. And even if you had a label, that would still be massive. So is that the kind of thing where you kind of go, wow, I finally made it?
I try not to let my brain travel too long with something good or bad, because it's all gonna kind of have an equal and opposite reaction. Like you train really hard for things, or like work really hard, and then eventually, you know, the moment passes, and you kind of get that little sadness after it's over. So I try to just indulge in it. I used to only be able to enjoy memories because I was so tight the whole time, getting everything the way I wanted it. And then I'd have to look at pictures to be like, whoa, that's so cool. But now I'm a little bit better in enjoying the moments. And like I really try and do enjoy like when I'm in a studio and you have those happy moments where like a song just suddenly comes together, or you just find out a tidbit of information, or you're on the road together and something connects and you write together well. Or like I love touring, I love working with certain people, those moments. And then finally when you actually do get those moments at the end, yes, I totally bask in it, I celebrate, but at the same time I try not to travel too long with it. There's no end destination to where I'm going. I'm just trying to keep going in the right direction.
And so I mentioned the New Brunswick, sit in the car, play music, with the I can't remember the name of the show. I don't know if you remember it.
It's Jeff's Musical Car.
Thank you. I was struggling with this. So Jeff Musical Car, super cool idea. Was that hard to play guitar in a car driving around the city of Moncton? For those listening from the US, I mean, small little tiny city in a somewhat small province, I guess, in Canada. Was that tough to play music while you're driving around, or was that just a normal gig?
You know, surprisingly, both times weren't so bad. The first time I did one on my own, And then the second time, actually, I think that was one of the few times we got through the song without like screwing it up somehow. And maybe it's because I do practice a lot in the car. I can't stand driving cars, which I do a lot, but I love being in cars while somebody else is driving and I get to practice. In fact, that might be my favorite thing ever to do, just be able to practice guitar. And one of those places is while someone else is driving. So maybe that's why it wasn't so weird. I thought it was going to be, but no. And we played on boats. I played in airports. You know, I'm obviously obsessed with the trains and roller coasters and stuff like that. So, and I love traveling. There's something about me. I've said it before. I've never been on a tour where I've ever said, I can't wait to get home to my bed. Like I've never once said that. It's always been like, I just wanted to keep on going. So, I think the rumble of the car and everything, I guess maybe that's why it didn't seem so bad, but the anticipation, being a perfectionist, that was a little bit more difficult.
So you brought up a good point there on the tour side of things, and you know, one of the things that as we as we continue this along, I'm curious about the whole idea of fan support. I want to talk about that, but also touring. So on the fan support side, I know we talked on this a little bit, but I'm thinking for people listening to this video, whether they're an artist, a musician, love music, or maybe they're an entrepreneur, you know, both you and I were talking right off the top, like I had a book that I got to see a community come behind, and I'm about to do a launch. People watching this, I'm literally in the middle of a launch. So I see the importance of community now. And I watched it with you with the Bob Seger thing. That was a voting thing, I believe, and people making comments, your album, helping to fundraise for the album, and also with Last Man Standing when it came out on radio, there was also a voting component to that. And I know you talked about it being so important, but do you think that an artist today can thrive without those raving fans and building a community around them?
Well, I mean, I certainly couldn't. Like, for me, that's what it's all about. It's about the support of the public. And it's so weird because at one phase of my life, like, I was kind of like the person who would buy the coffee or whatever, and I wasn't very good at taking anything from anybody. And then after a while, you kind of realize you just have to think about it like the way that I look at another musician, that I enjoy being around them. I like what they're doing. It brings me joy. Somehow I have to remember that I'm not me, and like those people are me in a different way. So I got to stop feeling guilty sometimes for the help that people want to contribute, because that's the way it works. And I say guilty, but yet it's still, even for the crowdsourcing campaign, it was giving t-shirts or house concerts. And I always try to do whatever I can to give an exchange of, you know, energy or whatever it is to those people that are so supportive. But whether it's letting us, you know, sleep on a couch or a bedroom or voting for us or all that kind of thing, like that's completely how my business thrives. And I really do believe that if you have faith and you just, it might sound kind of cliche, but it's true. I was kind of a negative person for most of my life. I was always a good person, but I was just kind of negative. I had a negative outlook on everything, and I kind of blamed everybody else for things that weren't going well in my life. But as soon as I just, you know, tried to be positive and I just faced situations rather than kind of being shied away from them, things change drastically. And there really are a ton of people that do want to help you. Sometimes, you know, you might have the odd show where people don't come out as much. I think I'm pretty fortunate overall, but there's the odd time it's like you're throwing a party and people don't show up, and then you're just like really frustrated or whatever. But overall, when you look at the whole picture, most times people are out there, they are spreading the word, they are sharing your music, and it's like just your best side is being presented and they're showing their best side. So you're, you know, I'm being a bit vulnerable too, because I'm showing my arts, and you don't want to feel rejected. A lot of artists, you know, they feel that way, I think. But people in general, just, they're always trying to support you in some way or another. So it's an amazing vibe, but it won't keep going unless you keep going. So luckily I'm driven. So, and I do believe that as soon as you kind of pull back, things start to settle. But as hard as you work, people usually come out of the woodworks to help you.
Well, and like I said, I want to ask about the touring thing, but something you just mentioned there made me wonder your thoughts on this, like the idea of, you know, you mentioned maybe it's a bedroom, maybe it's a couch or what have you. And what made me think of is probably a couple of years ago, I was interviewing Ami James. So listeners and viewers may know Ami as the guy that runs Miami Inc. And there was the TV show Miami Inc. on TLC. And he actually talked about going to a network and how at first he thought it was awesome and, oh my, look at what it's doing for my business and my career. But then he started missing those days when he was couch surfing and doing tattoos. Like, sleeping on somebody's couch to go to, in some country, and then he was going to a tattoo festival the next day to do tattoos. And it was almost like the carnival lifestyle, and you weren't really accountable to anybody. And so my question out of that is, this brings me to the touring. Is that a part that you like about the touring? Does it feel like that? Like you're kind of on the road, you're sort of that carnival lifestyle where you get to go town to town and sort of live that type of lifestyle, which isn't really controlled by quote unquote the man? Because that's what his take was, the network TV, where it's sort of controlled by the man. Once he had the show, he couldn't live that lifestyle anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, pretty much, because I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to do different things, and I do have ADD, and I my attention span just disappears pretty much unless something new and exciting is keeping me in the moment. So going from place to place, it's like an exchange of energy. For me, just being idle and not doing anything is not a good thing for me. Like I mean, I meditate and I try to take that time for myself and be in the moment and kind of let the ping pong balls of the day just settle. But at the same time, I'm meant to move. I believe that. So yes, the gypsy lifestyle is, there's some things about it that can be kind of sad, because you start to realize that all those weekends that used to be party days are your work days, and the summer months are also more your work days. So it's like the complete opposite. And then the winter days are the days where you have to kind of sit home cooped up and work at stuff on the business side and still find ways to motivate yourself, get yourself out of bed, and still work like 24/7 at other things that don't necessarily pay you right away. In fact, that's the most difficult thing, is just constantly lighting a fire under your butt to just go and constantly work at new things that take different amounts of research. But yes, the whole gypsy lifestyle thing, I love traveling. I love everything about the style of a gypsy. In fact, even my next album cover, I've already had some ideas. So you're kind of doing some mind reading right now, I think.
Okay, perfect. And so the touring itself, and I know you've started to do more touring in central Canada, let's say in Ontario. I think maybe 2 or 3 tours in the last couple of years, I believe. But where do you see that going? Like, do you see a point where, because touring, I know it's how tough it is, and I know it's hard to arrange everything, and even the financial side, making it all work. Do you see at any point like a North American tour or a European tour? Do you see that stuff happening?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm gonna travel the world is what my plan is. No, I don't know exactly what the next. I mean, Ontario for the spring, summertime I come back, and I've got a lot of festivals over this summer, which takes me up to the fall. I'm probably gonna try to shoot for out west. I've got some irons in the fire for the fall, and then hopefully in the new year, that's when I'd really like to go tour someplace European. I've been to the States a few different times. Going through customs is a little tricky, and it's incredibly expensive for the P2 visa, especially if you apply for less than 100 days prior. And it's a lot of work. Of course, I still want to get back to the States, but I mean, I want to get everywhere. And Europe is a place I've been there for fun. I mean, a couple times while I was a kid, but to actually go play there. So yeah, I wanted to get to every place. And I always want to be able to come back home. Plus, I want to get out of here before people get too sick of me. I'm surprised that I still have as many nice people coming out to shows as I do.
Well, and I guess the other side is that's what keeps the shows going as well, in the sense that getting booked by the venue again over and over. If the supporters weren't still coming out, the venues would say, well, maybe we need to take a Christine Campbell break. But if you're still bringing people out, then that's how you still get those bookings, right?
Well, I've been very fortunate. And I yeah, as much as I love traveling, I still like having the East Coast be my home base. Like, I hope to always have that. And my dream is to have like a house on a lake someday, just that's going to be a studio where I can create with others. I love collaborating. I have way too many people I've promised to collaborate with and like no way of catching up completely. And I always feel a little guilty about that. But eventually I hope that I can get a little bit more stability in the funding and the booking and running everything, so that I can just use my attention for the creativity and planning when to do that creativity. So that's my biggest goal. I just want to keep being able to play and keep being able to tour with, good sound people, good turnouts, good listening audiences, and just being able to see all the sights of traveling. I love to travel, but also being able to come back and, be around family and collaborating with friends, and just being able to chill, obviously, around nature, which I really, really need.
So as we start to wind our way down, and by the way, something you triggered right there, I thought of that post that you put up recently in front of the VW van. And you know what post I mean, where I think you and Blake were in a VW Volkswagen van. Is that possibly in the future as well? Because that suited you guys so much. This is a side note completely, but that.
Oh, I would love something like that. We've been lucky to travel with a friend a couple different times in a trailer. A lot of times it's in my Hyundai hatchback, but and my biggest dream is to travel on a train. That would be my all-time dream come true. But I mean, a bus would obviously be nice too. Boats are nice, actually anything. But a hippie van would be cool as frigs. So yes, I would love that.
Well, and like I said, it just popped into my head because I remember that post, and yeah, I think that'd be super cool.
I
So
hear there's a lot of maintenance though, but then I also heard that there's like a club or a Facebook group or something where you can get parts. So that's the only thing you got to be really careful, because whenever you have like back-to-back gigs and it's all across, the country, you really can't afford those breakdowns.
well, and I know that's another thing in terms of something like a Facebook now that didn't exist before. I noticed as well when you're looking for something, let's say a certain type of mic or something else, I see you post it and say, hey, does anybody know about this? And literally you start seeing all the replies. I mean, that's another great example of a supportive community.
Well, it's crazy. I was just saying, like, it's better than Google, and I almost feel a little bit bad that I keep asking so much, but it's like whatever, you're looking for, and then bam, it's there. It just seems like it's great. And it's all people that, want to partake in letting you know where they know something is, or sometimes people selling something, or just advice. And it's great. I found out my dry cleaning, I found out where some certain mics were. I sold my guitar in like a day. They started bidding on my guitar. So
Wow.
it's cute.
Awesome. So as you know, I want to, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just said and it's super convenient. So especially when you're on the fly and you can't always Google and you're.
Totally. So I want to ask you about the book and your quote in the book, and then I'm going to wind us down by just asking you maybe what you have in store for the future. Maybe if you can tell us a few things that maybe you have in the works coming up, what have you. And then the question I don't know if I've ever asked you about, I'm giving you kind of a heads up now to prepare. Maybe that's not a good thing because you'll be thinking through it, but I want to ask you advice you give to your younger self. But before I jump ahead to all that, that's a big question, by the way. So your quote in the book, which, people, we're in book launch mode right now, so people know I'm talking about the book a lot, but I'm going to read it the best I can here. I used to let pain and sadness defeat me and react it by doing self-destructive things. Now I use it to fuel me and for positivity. Every time something gets to me, I run and pick up a guitar. This way, negative people can't knock you down. In fact, they contribute to your success. So my question is, what does that mean to you? What does that quote mean to you? When you look at something like that, how does that, I guess, and I know the quote sort of explains itself, but what does it mean to you today in terms of how it keeps fueling you?
Well, I mean, like in short, I've kind of always dealt with I've always kind of felt like an outsider, and I'm kind of dealing with a sister mental health org group right now, even because I've just kind of dealt with my own mental health in a lot of ways. I've dealt with, depression, anxiety. I think a lot of musicians do. And I felt like I was really susceptible to a lot of negativity, but I was also one of those really negative people. So a lot of my journey in life has been a negative one. And then there was a phase where I just hit a rock bottom, and not that I don't still struggle from time to time, but I have a totally different outlook on life since like about 4 or 5 years ago. I kind of hit my lowest points, and suddenly I started practicing a lot of guitar, and that was my meditation. And then I felt as soon as I could clear my head that things just made a lot more sense. And it was really just positivity and putting things into productive things. So it wasn't just people around me, it was myself. Every time I felt really negative, really sad, really upset, in the olden days, I'd go out and drink a bunch of whiskey. I'm not even saying I won't still drink the odd side of whiskey, but before I would do something that was kind of self-destructive, whether it was drinking or smoking, or I was in insomniac, and it just all around it wasn't, it's a longer discussion, but for me, I used every bit of that frustration, all that fuel, all that drive, because I had a fierce drive, was used for evil in a sense, but evil towards myself. And then it was like amazing when I took all that negative action and turned it into positive. So every time I would get frustrated, or every time you're like ruminating and you're really frustrated at somebody, or you feel like they, it's your ego really that you're just letting be bruised, which that's a whole other discussion too. So it was amazing what I accomplished in a few years after I had that outlook on life. And even during the slumps of the roller coaster ride, I'm always working towards that. I'm always trying to do something positive. I'm always trying to work really hard. And like somebody says something to you or something doesn't go well, you run home. And if I practice guitar for a while, I write a song, I feel really good about myself. So it really is, they can't like the best of me. All it did was just get me closer to what I want to be.
And so whenever you say that, I remember too, you shared this before, and even during interviews about how you hit this kind of low point. And I think it was, and I might be wrong in this, I'm going by memory, but I know you shared it with us in the interview, so I'm pretty sure it's okay to ask you about this, but you hit this really low. I think it was even maybe from a financial perspective, and you were just like as low as it could possibly be. And I remember you saying that you realized if I didn't quit then, I'm never going to quit. Does that make sense what I'm talking about? Am I close? Because I remember this was a big thing about the fact that you hit this point where I think you said to yourself, this is the proof. If I'm not quitting now, and if I didn't quit now, I'm in for life.
Well, yeah, I mean, the pivotal moment, and to be honest, there's been times where I've still had a low after that, and I've had to kind of climb out. But my mindset has always been on a different path. Felt like it was going down, but at that particular phase, which I'd say is probably one of two main low points, both very good learning experiences. But when it did happen, I'd broken up with my boyfriend. It was like my best friends. I'd gotten my degree and owed a lot of money for student loans, and I never took it out of the little cylinder thing. And I worked really hard. I had an A+ on my thesis. I was an A student. And I just suddenly realized, like when I actually followed through my backup plan, I realized if I just stopped and thought about it for a moment, I would have come to the conclusion that I couldn't do it. I'm really thankful I have it though, because it's worked well with what I do now. But also, yeah, I felt very cut off. I felt very alone. And I always thought that if I'd reached this point where I thought I couldn't do it monetary wise, like I suddenly was so broke, there was nothing coming in. But then I just realized at the end of the day, when I was at that low point, money couldn't buy me anything to make me feel better. I just I stopped drinking altogether for a couple of years pretty much. And I used to smoke cigars and stuff, and I just stopped everything. Life had kind of lost its flavor. And the only thing that really got me out of bed in the morning was playing music. So that kind of made me, by having that moment of clarity, by taking everything out, I suddenly realized the one thing that still made me feel like I had a purpose, and like I was some part of something that was bigger than myself. And I just didn't get caught up in the material things of life. And I still do once in a while, but I have to have those pivotal times in my life. There's certain signature moments I refer to every time I feel myself getting carried away or caught up in the stress and the pressure and the expectation, because I know what I'm here to do, and I'm going to keep working, and whatever happens, happens. And if it doesn't go the way I specifically, might want it at that point, it doesn't change anything. I'm still going to be doing this.
And so I said, winding down, I just had a couple of last questions for you. One of them is the future. Is there, I guess, anything you can share with us that's coming up? Is there any, what's happening, let's say, on the album side? Is there anything big in the works, or just more touring, or what's the future?
I mean, I'm going to be going on the road for a couple of months in Ontario, and then I've got festivals coming up, like I say, and a couple different tours coming up. Check the website, ChristineCampbellMusic.com, if you want to check other dates. I do my solo snippets every week, and then we'll just be listing different gigs. I'm working with CMHA, which is a mental health prevention and addiction services. I'm saying it wrong, which is why I was reluctant to say it. It's a new thing. I just want to try add some, I'm not going to make that $1 million check probably next week to be able to contribute somehow. So I'm trying to involve myself whichever way I can. My last album was very much about mental health. So I thought maybe I could pair up with that. And one of my songs in particular, it's a song called Nobody Cares, and it is about suicide, but it's not about being sad and depressed. It's about a reminder to people to talk about your feelings, but also for others to listen. And I know it might sound cheesy, but a lot of these words were things too that I needed to hear at certain phases. So I feel like hopefully they can help some other people. And aside from that, I'm working on a video. I'm really excited about my video. I can't disclose the details yet because I just have to solidify a few more things. But there's a couple videos in the works, but this next one is going to be my very first real professional video. And I'm in the midst of kind of getting somebody else to work with body paint and makeup and some cool stuff. and it should be happening very shortly. So
Awesome. And
check that.
speaking of the Facebook post, I think I saw one of those about body paint. So I think I remember seeing. Yeah.
I'm trying to ask for stuff without giving too much away, but I think it's gonna be super cool. I'm excited about it, and this other person's going to be in it, and she's great. I know she's going to do a great job. So I'm dancing around it, but yes, stay tuned.
All good. And you know, it's funny because that song, Nobody Cares, I really dig that song. I actually was driving to Yarmouth today, and I have your CD. Like, we have the 6 CD changer, and yours is one that's in there. And I have certain songs, like everybody else, I'm sure, that goes, oh, that's, you know, that's the song. And there's certain songs that pull you in even further than the rest. And that's certainly up there for me. What's funny, and I shared this with you, is that my girlfriend is like, she can't pick a song. Like, she loves the entire, she listens to the CD. I think she's like a super fan because she listens to the CD. I hear it playing all the time upstairs. And like, I'm always the person that picks like 4 or 5 songs, but these are the ones that I listen to the most. But anyway, what's really interesting, and I know I shared this with you, is we have a 6-month-old now. And when he was in her stomach, she listened to a lot of your music. It had just come out. And we went to see your show, and he kicked her stomach so much while you're playing that he caused a bruise when she left. And I know you said, oh, I wonder if it was good or bad reason, but he was kicking for a good reason because he recognized the music. Because yeah,
like, keep it down out there.
No, it was the opposite. He was like, yeah, right on, because she listened to different music all the time, and he never made a fuss, but he made a fuss when he was at your show. So I think it's cool. We've been saying for a while, his first concert, we took him to Boston at 2.5 months, and we took him to see Tori Amos. And I thought it was cool to say his first concert was Tori Amos, but technically his first concert was Christine Campbell.
Oh, that's right. BITC.
Absolutely. So
nice and warm and umbilically, Corey.
Yeah. Well, and so I think that means Tori Amos open for you. That's how I look at that.
Right.
So you'll take it. So the only other question I had was the one I promised. And it's funny because I was going to ask you where we can learn more, but you've already sort of helped me with that one. But you can say it again at the end if you want anyway. But my last question, which I asked everybody, is if you could sit across from a younger Christine Campbell, and you can pick the timeline because you know when you struggled the most or when you would give this advice, and you could give her one piece of life advice based on what you've learned in the years since, what do you think you might tell young Christine?
Just to believe in yourself. I know it sounds cheesy, but I feel like I've unlearned some cliche things and then relearned them like the right way. Because even though I had the most amazing parents ever, I found it really difficult to connect with anybody around me, and I feel like it was just always a battle trying to fit in, or just not even fit in, but just not like anybody find you out kind of thing. So I think I would just say that you really can do whatever you set your mind to. It's just having faith, and it's like it's so hard to just do that. You kind of have to do your own journey and figure out that from your experience that once you just are forced to do it, that it does work out. But yeah, if I had known that, I mean, there's no way I could have known that without going through what I did. But.
Well, and you know, that brings up a great point. I've said to people, I followed up that question often with, would she listen? But then, you know, would that young Christine listen? But at the same time,
no, she wouldn't have.
But at the same time,
and I was 13, 14 especially. I was a bit of a wild child. Even younger. I just, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no worries. It's all good.
I'm not listening now.
Well, I was gonna say it's probably a good thing that she wouldn't, because you hit another nail there in the head, and I say this all the time. Here's the catch-22 with that question: if your younger self listened, you wouldn't be the person of today. And you know, if you dig where you're at today, if you dig who you are as a person, I'm saying generally anybody, then one little change, as you know, the butterfly effect would mean that the whole thing falls to pieces.
Yeah, and maybe I would have taken a different turn that would have led me here. But even with, you know, my band in the past, I'm really thankful that, you know, I didn't hit it big or make that hit because I wasn't ready for it. I was pretty immature, and I drank a lot. I did stupid stuff, and it kind of scares me to think of making it bigger at a time when I really, really wasn't ready. I see a lot of documentaries and how a lot of things go down, and I'm thankful that I'm here alive, doing what I love to do every day. And even though there's some struggles some days, like, I'm super lucky.
So, and ChristineCampbellMusic.com is where people can go to basically get everything, all the deeds they need.
My YouTube channel does need to be updated because I've been doing so much stuff on Facebook and Instagram. So that will be updated. But yeah, there is YouTube.
Is that what you're saying?
and everything is connected. What was that?
I said, so you're saying don't go to YouTube, or are you
Well,
saying it's
just
coming?
know that it needs to be updated, but it will be shortly.
Okay, cool.
And the updated and everything, but yeah, all the info's there, and Instagram and Facebook are probably the main two most updated things for now.
Awesome stuff. Well, Christine, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'll call it a to be continued because the truth is it's been such a long time since we've done an interview. And I think this is our first video one. So I'll call it a to be continued with your permission. But until that time, thank you so much for making it all possible today. I wish you all the luck in the world for everything that's coming up, but I know you don't need it. You're working your butt off to make it happen anyway. So thank you so much for joining us today, and for keeping the passion alive for so many people. When they see what you're doing, I think you're, in some strange way, it's helping drive other people because they're saying, look what this girl's making happen by, like you say, working your butt off. So thank you for doing all that for so many.
Thank you. And I mean, I obviously, just to clarify, like, some people's version of success is different than mine, but I really just think that you have to measure where you were a while ago and see how far you've come from there. And you're the same, Corey. I know, like, we've had many really, really good talks, and I know that you reached so many milestones in your life, and you're also a very big inspiration to me. So thank you.
Oh my God, thank you ever so much. And I will say, much like you said earlier, the milestones, I'm the same as you. I can't get too caught up in them because I'll go down the wrong path. So I just kind of, like you said, I go, that was awesome. What a great experience. Time to keep moving. So totally get it. So I think we're kindred spirits in that way. So thank you so much, Christine. Like I say, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll call it a to be continued.
Right on.